is our guide in the vast expanse. It's where we reside, hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright.
From the foundation heights, cause the truth is our guide in the vast expanse. It's where we reside, hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright. SNX radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bring shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spots. Heavy bass drops with tight beats.
Illuminate the shadows, the echo of our call.
On this road we will never fall.
Feel the energy rising, can you sense the spark? As we dive deeper into the cosmic arc.
Stories of the universe, mysteries unfold. In the heart of SNX, where the truth is gold. Every note we play, every line we write, crafting our legacy, shining ever bright. SNX radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots. Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spot. Here in the spotlight, we're taking our turn. With the fire in our hearts, let the passion burn. SNX radio's call, ringing through the air. Together we rise, together we dare.
So join us now, let the rhythm flow. With SNX radio, we're ready to go. Unraveling the mystery side by side, we stand hand in hand. In this dance of truth, let the story expand.
Sunlight on my face, gonna make it worthwhile. Feel the good vibes embrace. Step into the street, music in the air. Move into the beat, no worries to declare. We're chasing happiness in every way we can. Living in the moment like a never-ending dance. Chasing happiness, not a single day is planned. Together we are stronger, hand in hand. Laughing with my friends, echoes in the park, joy that never ends, even when it's dark. Stars shine in the night, mirror in our eyes. Everything feels right underneath the skies. We're chasing happiness in every way we can. Living in the moment like a never-ending dance. Chasing happiness, not a single day is planned. Together we are stronger, hand in hand. Hand in hand. Laughing with my friends, echoes in the park, joy that never ends, even when it's dark. Stars shine in the night, mirror in our eyes. Everything feels right underneath the skies. We're chasing happiness Drifting we roam, finding our place in the vastness we call home. With courage and wonder we reach for the light, guided by visions that illuminate the night. Mystery cloaked in the past unknown, truth and discovery seeds we sow. In the started wonder we seek the key to unlock the secrets of our galaxy. Of our galaxy. And with the horizons, our spirits ignite, chasing the dreams that fill the night. Stars are our compass, and time is our friend. Together we'll journey where stories transcend. Mystery cloaked in the vast unknown, truth and discovery seeds we sow. In the starlit wonder we seek the key to unlock the secrets of our galaxy. Through endless horizons, our spirits ignite, chasing the dreams that fill the night. Stars are our compass, and time is our friend. Together we'll journey where stories transcend. Through endless horizons, our spirits ignite, chasing the dreams that fill the night. Chasing the dreams that fill the night. A symphony nights we were not made. A symphony of wonder, a secret key to unlock the secrets of our galaxy. Voices of the cosmos whisper our name. A symphony of wonder unheard of a celestial refrain. In each passing moment our wisdom grows. In the dance of the universe the truth flows. In the quiet of the night we dream and fly, with questions that echo through an endless sky. Bound by the stars our story unfolds. In the universe our destinies are told.
Ooh yeah, where the stars and secrets glow. Some Nation X radios glow. In the night we'll ride the show into the unknown, unknown, where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, oh yeah. Come with us and let it go, go. Night sky whispers in the dark. Secret trails will leave a mark. Follow close, ignite that spark. We're on a ride, it's just the start. Into the unknown, unknown, where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, oh yeah. Come with us and let it go, go. Feel the rhythm, feel the night. Every heartbeat, pure delight. So mysteries come to light. Hold on tight, it's out of sight, sight. Into the unknown, unknown, where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, oh yeah. Come with us and let it go,
the night. Let every heartbeat pure delight. Mysteries come to light. Hold on tight, it's out of sight. It's out of sight. Into the unknown, unknown. Where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, own. Come with us and let it go, go.
Flashbacks from the track, watch the past unfold. Got a story to tell, of courage untold. Rise up from memories, watch us take control. Echoes of yesterday feed our fight. From shadows to light, we'll take flight. In this race, embrace our might. Hold our dreams, got the future in sight. Rise up high, let courage unbind. Erase the past, keep future in mind. Every step forward, no looking behind. We own this moment, leave fear confined.
Hello and welcome everybody to SNX Radio. We have a Friday night show. It's Coley and we have Rodney. How are you doing tonight, Rodney?
Good. It's great to have another headliner guest. That's for sure. Keep booking him.
Oh yeah, and Brian Minnick is tonight, and he's going to talk about Project Montauk, and he's got some amazing information. But Brian he's an experienced Camp Hero researcher and explorer with a lifelong connection to the Montauk site. He'll talk about tonight, beginning his visits in childhood and embarking on a series of explorations in 1994. His decades-long dedication has made him a prominent figure in Montauk research, with appearances on TV networks such as History, Travel, Science, and many others. Brian has also personally met and conversed with authors of the original Montauk book series on multiple occasions. He now channels his expertise into his YouTube platform. You guys got to check it out. The link is in the bio. So Montauk is Strange, co-hosted with Danielle, a fellow veteran Camp Hero explorer. Together, they document the expansive base, frequently returning to capture new developments on Montauk ancient grounds. I think he said he's been there well over 80 times.
80
Their
times.
investigation, yeah, that's correct. 80 times. I mean, let's let that sink in. Their investigations extended into Long Island, broader mysteries, collaborating with other channels to explore interconnected topics like UFOs. Ooh, it's right up our alley. Cryptids, paranormal phenomena, psychedelics, and science of the mind control. Brian's work continues to unravel the high strangeness tied to Montauk and its enigmatic history. So, yes, without further ado, let's bring Brian on board here. So, welcome, Brian.
Hello, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
That was an awesome intro.
Oh, so glad. Yeah, no, we're so glad to have you. You have such extensive. Why don't you start from
Thank you.
Start from the beginning, and I just kind of let everybody know who you are and what you do,
Sure.
and we'll go from there.
No problem. Yeah, I basically I started going there like before I could remember with like parents, family, friends. We go out to Montauk because we're Long Islanders, and it's a place you could go to drive to the end, is what they call it. It's like the end of Long Island, but also kind of like the end of the U.S. because it's such a long island. It's 117 miles long, so you're driving way out onto. There's two peninsulas and the eastern end of Long Island, so it looks like a lot of people look at Long Island like a fish or a whale or a
Did it
shark.
freeze?
I don't think so. I'm
No,
here.
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, basically, so there's two peninsulas that jut out into the Atlantic Ocean, and Montauk is like the southern peninsula. So you're all the way out there on this like skinny piece of land, and so it's a good place to go. So our parents would go out there and like tailgate in the Montauk Lighthouse parking lot, which is right like adjacent to Camp Hero. And since then, we got on bikes and we would go riding off, and we actually one of the first times I remember, besides like running around Montauk town a lot, was when we were out at the point, which is right where the Montauk Lighthouse is, and Camp Hero is like on Montauk Point. So we took on BMXs and we found our way right to this bunker. It's called Battery 216, and we found a hole in the wall. So of course we went right into it, like 11-year-old kids would do, and no flashlights or anything. We climbed through and just went straight ahead down the tunnels. And right away, we're can't see anything. So we get through like most of the bunker. We're looking in the side rooms. Actually had a strange thought in my mind when I was looking down one of the side rooms. And this is as a kid. I pictured like this giant like reptilian thing, and I pictured looking through its eyes at me as the same time I was looking down the hallway at it. It was like a dual vision, and I just felt like
creepy.
And in my mind, I already knew like all this stuff, like it was weak and it wanted to like drain our energy, but it just couldn't like lift a finger, or it wasn't like fully physical. So I'm like, all right, whatever. My mind's playing tricks on me in the dark. We keep going, and we get to the other side of this hallway. I mean, the tunnel. It's like a corridor, and there's a giant hole in the floor. We could see this giant black spot from wall to wall. So there's no way to cross over this hole. But as we look, our eyes are starting to adjust, and we could like hear the echoes. So we're kind of like feeling the walls. And we noticed there's like rebar sticking out like sandwiched between two layers of cement in the floor, and it's kind of bent downwards. So we actually stood on that and like went like really close to the wall. And if you fell backwards, you're going to go down the hole. So like our friends would grab our jackets and pull us the rest of the way over. We took turns going over this hole. And then when we get to the other side, we're like, all right, let's see how deep it is. So we take like a piece of broken concrete, which is probably a piece of wherever the floor used to be, and we drop it down there. And it was like 1, 2, 3 seconds before it hit water, and we're like, oh my god, that's like so deep. We cannot go back across. So we found our way forward, and then there was like sand caving in, so we went down into another level down, and then forward a bunch, and then came out through a hole in the ground, like near the bluffs, right out of the ground. And what I found out from old blueprints later when I acquired them is that there is a small tunnel for the signal corps. That's the part of the army that would run all the cables, like phone lines, communications, and they did a lot of that stuff underground. They had their own little tunnels. So we actually found our way into one of those somehow by caved in sand. We didn't notice. And then we came out, what we thought was sand was just caved in manhole, like square hatch with a ladder that you go down. But all the sand, we thought we were climbing out of like a cave or something. And so since that day, I was hooked on this place, and I always remembered it. It like kind of changed my life in a way. But years later, when the Montauk Project books came out in 1992, we started hearing about them, and everybody's talking about this big radar. And I'm like, what radar? I've been out there all my life, and I've never seen a radar, because it's so it's out of the way and camouflage. So even when you're right there, you can't see it. There's trees in the way and big giant hills in Montauk. So it's arranged so you can't notice it with the way that it's been overgrown in the last few years. I heard you used to be able to see it from like back in the Montauk Village, which is about 4 miles from Montauk Point. So then when this book came out, we became obsessed. I was telling them I've been here already, in this bunker, but everybody was so obsessed, my friends, with the book and stuff like me. We all they didn't really want to hear the part about this bunker and this big underground. They wanted to go straight for the radar. So we tried a few times to go in like our senior year in high school, and we went in a blizzard. It took so long to drive out there. And then when we got there, we were walking through like 2 feet of snow on like frozen rain on top. So we're like punching through each step. It was so much work. Half of us went back. They couldn't take it. They were cold and they were losing their feeling. And we kept going. We went in the gate, but we were like, we're never going to get to the radar. So it was like the senior cut day of that year. We all went, nice weather. We went in straight into the radar. We went in all the tunnels. We went in every building. And I was just like, because we finally saw what this book was talking about. And within the year, we had gone back. We found our way to the meetings that they used to have. They had these meetings. Preston Nichols and Peter Moon, they were the original authors of the first book and the first 2 follow-ups. So it was like a trilogy called the Montauk Project, Experiments in Time. Peter Moon wrote the book. It was Preston Nichols' story. And so we went to this meeting in a bookstore. It was like $5. I have the tickets printed in the book that I wrote in the back, just to show that we were there in 94, 95. And so we'd go there and like listen to them. And they saw us come in and they were like, who are these kids? Because there was a bunch of people in there. And a lot of, some people were like monopolizing their time. So the first time we kind of just listened. And Al Bielek was there and Duncan Cameron as well. So all 4 of the original like whistleblowers were there. And so that the next time we go to this meeting, we have to have some stuff to show them. So we went in the book and we found, they said the radar still turned. So we went there one day and the radar was pointing like northeast or something. And then the next time we went, it was pointing like southwest. So there was a storm between, but it had moved. And each time I would go, I used to document what direction the radar was pointing in because it was in different directions a lot. So we brought these to like the original authors. I printed them out in like the dark room in like high school, and brought them. I printed these pictures and brought them to Preston and walked up to the table and showed him. And then he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, because it's on freesail mode now. They didn't lock the motors, so it's like the wind's blowing." But he was the one also saying that it still turned. It was still in use. So we decided to go out there as much as possible and start documenting it for ourselves as best we could to try to we didn't just want to take their word. We kind of wanted to go explore and also find what we could. But we used their book as like guidance at the time. And back then there was no maps for this place. So you try to find a map like in the library or like there's no aerials, nothing. There was no internet. And so what we got their Montauk Tour VHS. They had a video where they went to the space and a little bit in the tunnels. And so we used that as our like a way around, and we figured out this place and we started finding places we had to go and explore. So we went about 24 times or something, or maybe 22 times in the 90s, 94 and 95 heavily.
That's awesome.
And 95, we got arrested coming out of the tunnels, which we were recording, and that's on my channel, and it's been on like TV and stuff. So there's no really hiding that. But we took a break for a while, went back a few times in the 90s, and then I started researching on the internet for a long time, printing out the early internet and just pulling in info. And I kind of forgot about it when it became a park. I went for many times up until it became a state park. So they cleaned up. It was a toxic Superfund cleanup there in the 90s. They took down there used to be like 120 buildings. Then now there's like maybe a dozen. So they knocked down so many buildings.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't just the big radar tower on Radar Hill is what they called the Air Force intersection that had all the radar towers on this big hill.
Is that the one that's the red and the white?
Yeah, it has
satellite. Okay.
Exactly. That's the SAGE radar. It's an AN FPS 35. There was only 12 of them in the US, and it was the first one out in the field at Montauk. And it's also the last one standing. And it was a frequency diversity radar. So that means it could oscillate through frequencies like up and down. So it couldn't be jammed. It couldn't be tracked. But in the process of that, they found out all this other cool stuff along the lines of the effects on the human mind and, people's moods and several other things. But so basically this radar site used to have a whole bunch of radars, not just that big tower you see today, but there were 4 other, what look like a golf ball. They're called radomes. It's like a radar inside of an inflated white bubble, and the radar's in there in turns, or they go like this up and down. Those are height finders. So there were like 4 metal towers there that we actually there were more than that, but when we started going, there were 4 metal towers that you could go in and explore, and those had huge basements. I took pictures down them, and we used to go climbing on top of the roof of the giant pink tower. And so this was an army base at first for coastal artillery. So there's all these old army bunkers there, and then the Air Force took over right after World War II. One of the very first Air Force bases on the East Coast was Montauk, and 2 in New Jersey. And they started out with some basic radars, and they started adding over the years. MIT made a computer building there, and they did stuff called the Cape Cod system that was responsible for the very beginning of the internet itself, was in the 1950s through Montauk and MIT. Montauk rolled out the very first keyboards, light pens, circuit boards, and modular circuit packaging is what they called circuit boards. And they had integrated circuits, which are basically IC chips, like little microchips on circuit boards, and also touch screens. And so the light pen would touch the cathode ray tube, and that would be essentially the first touch screens. And so they really, and the first wide area networks. So essentially the very first beginnings of the internet, which later became ARPANET. And then finally, then the online system, then ARPANET. And then you could trace it from there through what you can find in modern. If you just Google it, you're going to find where it leaves off from ARPANET. But you could go back before that easily. So it's amazing.
People don't realize how much the technology the government holds before the people even get it.
It's like half a century.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
So that's wow. That's crazy. That's wild.
And that's just a piece of it. So we started going there and got pulled right into it. We were like obsessed with it, and there was just so much to explore and to find out. And I didn't even know half of it back then. It was all new to us. So when I do talk about those times in the book, I write about it as, because I actually documented these trips as soon as I got home on those days. So I had all these notes and I just kept them the way they were. So like when I'm first going to these spots in the book, I write it as that. I don't know what I'm talking about then. And so it's just purely what we saw that day. And so it's a separate section. And
it's almost like a journal then.
That part of the book is like all the field reports are kind of like a journal. Yeah. And then I have stories from locals, 30 of those, and I have 30 more. But I have 30 in this book, and I kept them anonymous, the people that told me the stories. That one part of the book is the only part where I didn't heavily document and source, all of where I got everything from, because those people do not want to have their names, and I'm just respecting their privacy. But I want to tell everybody what they told me. So I have that kind of.
No, I was going to ask. I was going to ask about that. I was going to say how, with the people that living there, how do they feel about their anonymity and all of that? Because the government doesn't play around sometimes. I can understand where they'd be apprehensive.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely. People have asked me over the years the same thing. But the town of Montauk is very hush hush about this. Like Stranger Things, the original pilot was called Montauk. And everything was set at Camp Hero. I have the pilot. I have the script for the pilot. And so what they did is just go in and copy and paste everything from Camp Hero Montauk into Hawkins, Indiana. And I heard that was a filming choice, so they could film in Georgia. I don't really know the reason. But now that I think about it, it was a bad choice because now, like, Universal has the Stranger Things ride, but Disney's trying to encroach. So in the Marvel movie Loki, they had the Philadelphia experiment ship, the USS Eldridge, DE-173, it says on it, that comes through the time portal. Loki's jumping through, he's traveling through time. And then like in the movie Morbius, he's offshore Montauk, they show in the movie. They say he's offshore Montauk, and it's kind of like Plum Island because it's a disease, a research, biological research. So they're dancing around this topic, like trying to get in on it. And they can actually use Camp Hero Montauk if they want, because Stranger Things can't use that anymore. They kind of gave it up. So now it's kind of open because nobody has it really copywritten. Aren't
they coming out with a 5th series? There has to be a reason behind all that. You can see as you've been talking about the movies on how Disney started off making training videos for our military. To think that they're not, subliminally disseminating all that information. But wow, that's
it's there. So when you go to the town of Montauk, you would think that they would have tourists, some kind of, maybe sell some Stranger Things t-shirts, or my friend says you would think they'd have a statue of the Demogorgon right in the center of town because it's, but Montauk is a very high-end tourist resort in the summer. In the winter, it's like a ghost town. And in the summer, like the richest of the rich or the most famous and powerful go out there to vacation. So I guess maybe they don't want that in town. So it's a very hush topic. You could ask locals all day. They will just like stonewall you. And you can go in all the gift shops and not a single radar or anything.
So you're telling me that, repeat that part. So during the winter time, it's like a ghost town, but during the summer, who frequents there? Like you're telling me that.
Yeah, it's basically, the Hamptons, right? So like the Hamptons, Montauk is technically in the Hamptons. It's part of East Hampton town, but it's like you drive through the Hamptons, past it to go to Montauk. So it's like the more exclusive, stranger enclave in the summer. Like in the winter, it'll take us like 40 miles to drive out, 40 minutes or so to drive out there. But in the summer, it could take us 3.5 to 4 hours just to get there in the traffic. It's like stopped. People are everywhere shopping and on vacation, and it's like a madhouse in the summer. And they film a lot of shows out there, and it's just, there's famous people everywhere, like kind of laying low. And yeah, the rich, the powerful, the elites.
Yeah, that throws up some red flags here. I don't know about anybody else, but it's throwing up a few red flags here.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when we go out there, we're it's kind of like walking into a war zone. I mean, there's nothing out there. It's like a long peninsula. If something happens, there's like nothing for you got to drive for hours if you wanted to go, like, say, to like a hospital or something. And you're stuck out there. That's how it feels when you're there.
I've thought about that in the sense of being one of the Montauk boys. I couldn't imagine being stuck at Camp Hero, and the only way to escape would be across the Long Island Sound, or like you said, to go through Montauk, the Hamptons, and into New York City.
Yeah, because if you go, like, one side of Montauk is the Atlantic Ocean all along the coast. And, the great whites all are born right there. It's the Great White Nursery. So one of the great white sharks has a social media. They track it. It's they're born in Montauk, and they swim around the planet, and then they come back to Montauk every year, which is pretty cool. But it's straight up ocean. I mean, you look out there and there's nothing until you like hit Europe, Africa, South America. You could look across the world from Montauk. You're not going to see around, but you're going to be looking at nothing but ocean and if you look in a straight line, I mean, there's nothing anymore across the ocean. So it's just sticking out there. And the other side of Long Island, yeah, you would head towards Connecticut across the Sound. But yeah, there's no escaping if you're on Montauk. Even in hurricanes.
Under the ocean, underneath the ocean.
Yeah, the ocean, definitely. There's something I found right off the coast of Montauk, and on the south side of Montauk, there's supposed to be pyramids in Montauk. And this has always been a thing to look into and research, ties to Egypt through the Montauk tribe. A lot of their tribal leaders' names is Pharaoh, spelled exactly like Egypt. And there's been a lot of connections to Egypt since day one. And Montauk were the seat of power of Long Island. So even though they're all the way out on the easternmost tip, there was 13 tribes on Long Island, and the Montaukets were the chiefs of all of Long Island. The western side of Long Island is New York City, 2 boroughs of New York City. So like, Brooklyn and Queens are on this side. Then you have Nassau County, which is like the suburbs, and then Suffolk County is rural. But eastern Suffolk County is mostly water because it's like these thin pieces of land. And then the Montauk tribe is out here, but they were in charge of everybody. So when they call a meeting, people would take canoes all the way from there and come out here to this place called Council Rock, which is now at this place called the Montauk Manor, which is also supposed to be haunted. And there's a whole thing about that. But so it essentially, the Montauks had this seat of power because they were supposedly had ties to ancient Egypt. And so there were supposed to be pyramids in Montauk. And what I found off the coast by looking on Google, it was Google Maps somehow on my phone. They used to have the seafloor in good definition, good clarity. And I found 2 giant mounds off the south coast. And actually, when I zoom all the way out on the map, one of the major latitude lines crossing with the longitude line is right on top of that mound. And
wow.
Like if you zoom out enough, the latitudes are, you have your main latitude and longitude lines. And I noticed that, but off the coast of the tip of Montauk, there's this big plateau with rows of mounds, like a city. And right in the middle is this place called Great Eastern Rock. It's a spire under the water. And they describe it as a big needle, almost like an obelisk. So it's like this obelisk is like in the middle of the city down there. And this thing ripped the bottom off the biggest ship in the world at the time, the Great Eastern. It was laying all the transatlantic cables. And before the Titanic, this was the biggest. And it tore the bottom off this thing in Montauk. Wow. So they call that Great Eastern Rock. I have like the nautical charts and stuff printed in the book. And but that made me think that this is an ancient place of like maybe because obelisks are sometimes Masonic, architecture. I was thinking George Washington commissioned the Montauk Lighthouse to be built. And not only that, that was the very first public works project in the U.S. So the very first thing we built as a country was the Montauk Lighthouse. And
that's interesting.
It was important. And it was also the guiding light to the New World. So that's very symbolic, if you know. It was the Statue of Liberty before the Statue of Liberty, the Montauk Lighthouse. So people coming from Europe, immigrants, would use that to find their way along the bottom of Long Island to New York Harbor, to East River, and where the Statue of Liberty is now, which is also a gift from the French Freemasons. So I'm thinking it has some ancient importance, maybe what's buried off the coast there. So when I took these screenshots and I printed them, I mean, they're black and white in the print copy. I'm working on doing another one in color. The ebook has them in color, but I have them, I had them right here on my desk before. I'm going to make sure I copy these and save them, because now if you go and look, since I printed this, Google has blurred the whole entire thing out. It's gone. It's like, has no definition. You can see the basic shapes, but it's like all blurry now. And I'm going back in every kind of Google mapping that I can, like Google Earth and, my phone, and it's just gone. So I'm so glad
They're notorious for that.
Yeah.
You stumbled on something. Yes, I know.
So it was a very ancient part of Montauk, and maybe that's why they chose this part of the Earth to set up, future things as well. It's crossed my mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's so much to it. I mean,
Really
when you hear it, you're the first person that I've heard go into such detail, and it's just like connecting dots, and I'm just like, wow. Now it starts to really make sense and kind of click in here. Like, wow, what's going on?
I'm surprised. If so many horrible things happened there, I'm surprised they didn't put manufacturing and industry in there and rebuild like they do on other bases when they close them.
That's a good point. Yeah, they did repurpose it many times. Like Camp Wyckoff was there first, and that was the first veterans returning from a foreign war in the U.S. in 1898 was Camp Wyckoff, the Spanish-American War, and they had it as Montauk. The entire peninsula was a quarantine camp with like 50,000 troops, or that, I have to refresh that number, but it was, I think, 50,000 people, and they all had like malaria, yellow fever. And Teddy Roosevelt was there at the time. That's sent him on the fast path to be president, actually. His best friend starved out there. He had this group, the Rough Riders. They were like riding horses, and that was the name of their group. But one of his friends there, they had really supply chain problems with food. So people in New York City were like donating food, but by the time it got there, it was like no good, or they didn't get it to people. So he starved, and that's why they made the VFW. It was the first Veterans of Foreign Wars was made at Montauk. The first Red Cross mission was at Camp Wyckoff in Montauk. And then Teddy Roosevelt went on, right after he saw the Sasquatch, where he wrote about the Sasquatch in the book Upstate New York, then he was at Montauk. And then when he went back to his house in Sagamore, he saw a UFO there, split a presidential chair in half in his house. And then he had a vision to redo the Navy for the U.S. So he became president shortly after. That's really weird. So that was the first time they were there. But since then, Montauk has been all military ever since the entire century. They had a naval air station there with like blimps and seaplanes, and then they had a full-on submarine base there and a torpedo factory. There's a Navy base in Montauk too, and I've heavily investigated that. There's tunnels there. And then, they had the Army Coastal Artillery. Then they had the Air Force over there, one of the most high-tech radar sites in the country and the world, the Sage radar site. And then the Army came back again for anti-aircraft practice for 7 years. And then a few years after that, they came back again and tried to make a Nike nuclear missile base there with just 2 missiles in the old, the bunker that I first went in as a kid, actually. And I have all those documents in my book. They're Freedom of Information Act documents, and they were given to me by veterans of the 773rd Radar Squadron who were at Montauk. I'm on their Facebook page, and they were sharing these documents with me, like the entire base history. So, there's things I believe that I kind of found out maybe I was a little wrong or off, and now I can't like lie to myself because I want to believe it. So I had to change a few things. But in the end, when I circle around with all this info, it kind of points right back to the original story always. Like, it gives me like goosebumps when I think like this is actually saying that some of the stuff that was, had no proof or anything, it was word of mouth from some of the original whistleblowers, turns out to be to check out with all the digging and everything. And so it's just like spins you in a circle, and it's like a huge rabbit hole. And yeah, but
a lot of people don't want to think that their government is capable of this, but their government is capable of this, and they've done this throughout history. So
absolutely,
I'm sure that's a lot to swallow. But I mean, yeah, in that area, I mean, there's been a few things. But so it was a real technological hub. Like, what do you think brought it there for the technology? Like you talked about.
I guess just the fact that they had the first of the Well, I mean, they had the internet starting to be developed there. And, I don't know why they chose that spot to do so much stuff, because before they decided to move the Air Force, where the World War II base closed, and like in a few years, 2 years, the Air Force was there, because the Air Force was created in 1948. And right away, in like the first 3 months, they had a base at Montauk on Radar Hill is what they call it. But right before that, they actually chose that for the spot for Plum Island Animal Disease Research Center,
Yes.
which was the actually Army Chemical Corps for 4 years before that. And somebody just found the actual document, because I wrote about it, but I could never find the actual proof, because I read it and I couldn't find it because I have so much stuff. But somebody just today sent me the actual thing I've been looking for, and it actually says, yeah, this was going to be the spot where they were going to investigate the bovine cattle disease and biological weapons, and they spelled out how they were going to build it and everything. They didn't do that because there's the oldest cattle ranch in the country is right next door to Montauk. It's called Deep Hollow Ranch, and that's actually where the American cowboy comes from. It wasn't from the West. It was in Montauk in the 1600s, like 1650 was the very first cowboys. If you look it up, and they were from Montauk. So yeah, it would be silly to study, bovine disease next to this giant cattle ranch. So they actually chose Plum Island, which is another former Army site.
Plum Island.
Yeah, Plum Island. It was actually B&L.
Well, the about the mosquitoes, escaping through the through the chimney, and then now we have Lyme's disease. I mean, from Plum Island,
yes.
I mean, that's
Eric Traub. He was a paperclip scientist, Eric Traub. They wanted him to run Plum Island, and that's all documented. He was studying tick-borne diseases in Nazi Germany. And yeah, Plum Island is right between Lyme, Connecticut and Montauk. And Montauk had something before Lyme. It's named after Lyme, Connecticut, because that's where they thought the first cases come from. But Montauk, Montauk Knee in the 60s, there's something called Montauk Knee. And Plum Island's right between them, equal distances. So yeah, the power went out a few times at Plum Island, and things escaped air ducts, and they had blackouts. So it's definitely something that got out of there. And when we go, we get like hundreds of tick bites on each limb in the summer. They're tick larvae. They're Lone Star ticks from Texas somehow. They must have been studying them, but they have this thing when they're so small, they're like microscopic in their first year. They haven't bit anything yet and fell off over the winter. You're the first thing they bite, but it looks like we thought they were chiggers at first. They're so itchy, it's worse than mosquitoes and poison ivy combined, and they leave like wounds on you. But you can get this meat allergy from them called alpha-gal. So you can know within 6 hours if you eat any kind of meat, you'll get violently ill. And so each night after going there, we at the campsite, that's all we had anyway. So we're like, let's find out if we have it or not.
Test the meat.
Yeah, it's scary. There's a lot of dangers there for sure. And a friend of mine said they're probably dumping these things here to keep us out because, they've definitely watched our videos, and I've seen them react like the next day to some things I found out there. And
if you don't think they're watching, people think no, they watch.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, do they watch?
Yeah, definitely.
And I've had things too, like shutdowns,
them dog collars, the Resto collars, put them on your ankles. I mean, I've never had a tick on my dog. They are not one of our sponsors, but
what is it called?
The Resto dog collar. They cost a bit of money, but they're guaranteed to keep a tick off my dog. They'll keep them off you down there, I bet you.
Money well spent for sure out there.
Yeah.
Anything to keep them off would be great. So
as long as you don't take a vaccine for whatever they gave you.
No. I wouldn't trust
problem reaction solution. No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Exactly. I wrote that in my book. I just wrote problem reaction solution in one part. Yeah. I love that one.
Totally it too. That's totally it. So how many bunkers did you end up finding? Because I mean, you've made it through a few different levels, and
yeah, I found all of them, and I have the blueprints for like all of them. But I've been in a bunch of smaller bunkers. Some are disguised as homes, like houses, and they were for like looking over the ocean. Yeah, it's cool. There's like a little cement tower, like sometimes two side by side, different shape, like block structures. But a lot of them have this cement structure with like slit windows under the roof line, so you can't really see. And they're made for they were for World War II to like see where they were shooting and do like trigonometry. But these things have tunnels that connect because everything was done with phone cables back then. So like they had to call in the coordinates, and then find out if they hit, And if you don't have these phone wires, so people are like, oh, they have them, probably above ground, but why would you hide everything else, like disguise things as homes? And there's one Camp Hero bunker that's disguised as a windmill, but it's actually a cement tower. That's on Gardens Island, actually. It's like a satellite one. But the point is, they're hiding everything. So why would they keep these cables out in the open? And furthermore, they had to protect them from like air attack and stuff. And so these tunnels are just basically like cables on the walls, and they're enough for a person to walk through. I think they're called cableways or utilidors. So if like a line breaks along the way, they can go and like fix it quick. And also, it also provided some ventilation and stuff like that. But these tunnels run for miles to connecting all these sites. And these things are called fire control stations. They're actually really cool. One of them, like some are still standing, one's right in the base. One of them's like outside Camp Hero, and it's made into a luxury home. They sold it for like 30 million or something. And then they filmed an episode of Seinfeld in it called The Hamptons. And they're actually in one of the Camp Hero bunkers that's disguised as a house. It's like a cement tower, but there's a big wooden house built onto it. They had like barracks, mess hall, and stuff in there. And they these things had like gun groups for 50 caliber guns. They had searchlights. So they each did like different purposes besides spotting, lookouts and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of little bunkers like that. There's some water utility bunkers, but then there's 5 main bunkers. Those are the big ones. And there's two are giant guns, 16-inch guns. So like the width of the shell was 16 inches. So like these things weigh 2,000 pounds each round, and they would go out like 20 miles into sea and hit like battleships or submarines. And so these guns were the main purpose for the big bunkers. They had 2 of these on each. And then 2 of the ones behind them were like plotting rooms. So they would figure out where the shots went and stuff. They were really secure. And then there's this other one that's a standalone one. It has all that stuff inside it. And it had 2 like smaller 6-inch guns. So these bunkers were like, not only like did they fire, but they had a whole bunch of ammo in them and levels of generators and air conditioners and all kinds of stuff. And so I've been in, let's see, 1, 2, 3 of those. And I went below ground in 2 of those. I went in one of them about 9 times. And one of them, the first one I went in as a kid, I've only been in that one time. And that one has really stuck with me, my whole life. I want to know what made that big hole in the floor. Like, what could possibly do that? So I've gone through the whole history of that place and still can't really find a solid answer.
A big hole in the floor. Is that evidence of Junior, the Montauk Beast, whatever he was?
Somebody actually,
He was coming out of the
floor. I got a
screenshot.
Yeah, somebody mentioned that was Junior punching his way out of the underground once. I took a little screenshot of the comment. But Junior, yeah, I mean, when he did, well, so, the legend goes, destroyed the base. I think it was more towards the radar tower. But I did find they had an accident once where a shell blew up. And also the Navy SEALs and this ADTAC that ran Montauk Air Force Station at the time. That's the branch of the Air Force that has Black Berets. When they work with other branches of the military, they did a joint exercise in that bunker in 1970. And who knows what they did in there. But I mean, I know they could have maybe caused that hole. But there's an interesting thing on the old internet called Reptilians at Montauk, written by Michelle Guerin. And she talks about being like abducted on the beach, hearing a buzzing, going like her and her boyfriend were like laying on the sand, and this Jeep came and like took them, brought them to a bunker. And when she described it, and when I read this in like 2002 on the internet, I was like, that's Battery 216. I know it because she described the door. So she gets taken in there, and it's this reptilian thing like does something to her. They put her on a table, and then years later in hypnotherapy, she brought it back. So I think, I remember that story. And then just like 2 years ago when I'm researching the book, I look and I see ADTAC, which was running Montauk Air Force Station, ready for closure for 13 years. They had no mission. 1969 to 1981 is basically when ADTAC was there. They actually wear black berets. I was like, she said the guys have black berets. And I was like, there's no way she could have known this because I just got it from a Freedom of Information document that somebody just got like that year. So it was in the year 1970, like she said. So I kind of think that might have some truth to it. And
did she describe them, or I mean, do you think that they were bringing them through, or what was your
what she sounded like? They were bringing her to this being for some reason, like almost like they were like serving it. That's what I got out of the story. I don't really know why, but they were catering to this creature that was in there, and so it kind of reminded me right away of what I imagined when I went through that tunnel as a kid. I looked down that hallway and I pictured this thing. And when she described it, it was identical. So it kind of freaked me out when I read that. I forgot about it. And then years later, when I found that black beret thing, I was like, oh no, man, that's crazy. That
Yeah.
the
Well,
lines up.
can you describe it still? Can you describe it like
Yeah,
what
I
it
could
looked
describe. It was muscular. It had like pointy ears, maybe a tail, like a big fat tail, and
like? Okay.
that's kind of like what I remember, like maybe little bumps on its head, like little thorny. I just pictured this in my
Yeah.
mind, and it was like also I saw us at the end of the hallway going by, like I was looking through its eyes, but also I was looking down the hallway at it, and I just chucked it up to imagination. But who knows? With all this other stuff, I keep reading more and more. And when I
Mhm.
hear things about that, I've heard somebody recently say something also about reptilians in the same bunker. So I mean, because Preston wrote about working with reptilians and greys it's supposed to be an
Mhm.
alien base underneath at Montauk, according to the original authors.
Mm.
And I didn't have much to go on that. So there was one part I hid some symbols in my book, 3 symbols for remote viewing targets, and then I put the symbols in envelopes, and I had like total novices that never did it before try to tell me what was in them. And I asked about the one about the UFO being buried at Montauk because I figured let me ask about stuff that I have no proof or clue on. And what they gave me was a circular building in the woods, and I actually know of this circular building in the woods, so I go and look at it again, and it's actually next to the radar that replaced Montauk. It's in Riverhead, New York. It's a giant
Mm.
radome in 1981, and right there, when I went there a long time ago, it wasn't there, but they built this afterwards. So I'm like, wait, did they move it? Like, was there actually one there, and they like moved it to this location because it's sealed off you cannot go in there. It says on the front sign you'll be like shot if you go in, basically, because it's an
Oh
FAA.
wow.
Yeah, they monitor all the air traffic and also weather. It's it's another.
So the FAA is the one that's saying that you'll be shot if you go
Yeah, it just says
through there.
entering this facility could result in the loss of human life, and how it's. I have the pictures of the sign and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I was in
That's interesting.
college across the street one day, I was so curious. I used to film it from the college parking lot, so I saw the gate open. I was like, let me, I want to see it. So I drove in there. I didn't see this sign until I came out. Like I didn't. I was like, oh no, I just went in there. But I drove all the way in. It was this really long road, and when I got under the radome itself, I was looking up at it like, oh my god, here I am. I'm here. And so then I drive out and I see the sign that says that. I'm like, oh man, that was stupid. But I've explored a lot of these places out here and just winged it, I guess.
I don't think that's stupid. I think that that shows that you're investigating. You're a good
That's true, yeah.
investigator. Like, heck yeah, lots of
So
respect to you for that.
thank you. Some of the clues that people give me, regardless, are they're really they line up, and it's kind of incredible every time. The synchronicity of these things is just never ending. It just keeps coming. So that tells me there's something more to it too.
At what point did they bring the kids there?
So yeah, I think there were waves. Like I started thinking about that recently, and I know a lot of people that were there before the 80s, like in the late 70s, and those are like the first kind of generation people. Like the guy who let me into. I have a friend of mine who was on some other shows, and he actually worked at the park, but he was like one of those kids in the early 80s, late 70s that used to. He lived in Montauk, and then right after the base closed, local kids would get him to ride their bikes in there, and he felt really weird about it. He felt like something was wrong about it, and then he said he actually became part of the project. He worked there for like 20 years in the park as a maintenance guy, and on like his last week, he let me into this building that like nobody's ever been in just to check out like the basement and stuff, and then he was out of there. But it makes me think that that was like the first generation, and then like in the early 80s after the base closed and stuff, that's when it really started. That was like the main group of the first Montauk boys, like in that era. But I think they were, doing this all along, of course. But there is this part of the story where they revamped, like the underground was destroyed, right? Because they ended in ruin. The base was destroyed and flooded. Everybody knows everything under there was flooded because like the scuttle procedure for like a biolab would be like burn it with fire. But in Montauk, it was so much technology and electronics, they just poured water into it, and that just destroyed everything.
Short circuited. Yeah.
So there was this whole thing about them coming back in the 90s to rehab it. And they used to write about this a lot. So I recently started to dig up some of these old stories, but they said that the Army and the Navy had their own different Montauk boy like agents, and they were battling each other. And then it started expanding around the country, like, the Presidio, or like Rome, New York, and like Sag Harbor, there was this thing, and Preston claimed to be working with an Air Force guy in the Montauk Tower, which is this tower in the middle of town that's like connected to the Montauk Manor. Actually, somebody named Carl Fisher built like most of Montauk. He built tunnels connecting the buildings that he built, the Montauk Manor, the tower, and he built like other structures. And the thing is, he built they say he built a tunnel from the town out to Montauk Point, where the base is. And it sounds kind of crazy, but this guy built Miami Beach, the city in a swamp. He built the first road across the United States, east to west, from New York to San Francisco, called the Lincoln Highway. So to say he can't build a tunnel 4 miles out to Montauk Point is like, you know, if you look at his other accomplishments, it's nothing to him. And the
Did I hear you say Rome, New York?
Yeah, Rome. It was part of the Montauk story that was one. There's an air base in Rome, and it was connected to the Sage system, I believe, and also that was supposed to be a site where they continued the stuff that ended at Montauk. And,
okay, I'm 10 minutes from there right now.
Wow.
And yeah, there's still a lot of stuff going on there. It's a former Air Force base.
Yes.
And it's home to
Get
the
in your
Eastern Air
car,
Defense.
Rodney. Go.
Oh, the
Where
guests
you
you
might
get on
doing
here,
yourself. Take your phone and drive there. I mean, where are we doing here?
I'm going to be there to get the wife in 45 minutes.
I tell her you might not make it on time.
I worry. You know, that's why I'm worried about putting my, I'm like, we'll talk about this after another time.
Yeah. I mean, there was a place called Kings Park here on Long Island that a lot of people investigate for like paranormal. It's an old psychiatric center that was shut down. They said that a lot of people from Montauk moved there after the project closed to house some of the people that were damaged. And, you know, they kind of have all these places where people went off to. Like, so I've investigated some of those. But, you know, Michael Aquino at the Presidio in San Francisco did a very similar thing, you know, as far as like ritual abuse and all that stuff and mind control in that sense. You know, he was like the head of the Temple of Set or something. And he was a high-ranking Air Force colonel. And also he did this in the same exact cookie cutter blueprint battery that the ones at Montauk are made in. It was in, you know, they have these all around the country. They're built exactly the same kind of. So that's what's weird. In San Francisco, they have these big ventilation tunnels that people have gone on YouTube, and they run for, you know, a good, like maybe 1,000 feet to this thing called the Battery Commander Station, which kind of tells them where to shoot and everything. It makes sense, you know, because why do you want these guys running across the base out in the open when you're hiding everything else? So at Montauk, though, they try to act like that doesn't exist. But I recently found the actual little entrance to it on the blueprints, which I missed all these years. But we did this test on the dark files. The third day, they had me like have dinner with the geophysical team they hired. It was like $80,000 or something they paid these guys. They just came from the paw of the Sphinx in Egypt. They were doing GPR under the Sphinx's paw. Then they came to Montauk, and I had dinner with them. I said, let's this is where I think we should do it. And then we went to a spot Al Bielek recommended to look for hundreds of skeletons that he said were, you know, buried there. And they used a magnetometer and a ground penetrating radar. We checked some Geiger counter stuff in this big circle road that was supposed to be a particle accelerator. We did find a giant rock with uranium in it instead. And we used to race around that rock and race around the circle road and sit on this rock after the rest. Turns out this rock is like heavily laden with uranium. So that's why we were sick. We were trying to figure out why we felt ill around that area. We were sitting on like a radioactive rock basically after we ran.
Oh, wow.
That was on the show. They cut part of that, but the best experiment we did was this thing called electronic resistivity imaging. And it was right in front of the radar tower. That was where me and Chris Garitano, who made the Montauk Chronicles, he was on the show with me on the Dark Files. We both like unanimously agreed right in front of the radar because the bunker has to connect to that building on Radar Hill, like all the theories and like other sites across the U.S. And so they nailed all these spikes in for like in a row, like across the whole area. And then they took a slice of imaging down into the earth, like a straight slice down 60 feet. And we find this massive structure down there. It was huge. And it looks like this, maybe like the side view of a tunnel or some kind of big room. And it's under like the tennis courts there. So it's not supposed to be there. And there was another small tunnel that looked like this. So maybe it was like the side view. And it's right in line where it should be. So that was like proof right there for me. They say there's absolutely nothing underground, and we found it. So, but you know, these things kind of get buried and lost. And with the story the way it is, with so many angles and how deep it is, I guess it really, there's a lot of details, but without somebody like, that's why I made the book. Kind of wanted to share everything that I was sitting on, because I was sitting on all this stuff. I'm like, if I don't like push the button and print this and get it out there, it's like, what if I lose it all or like something happened to me? Then I just wanted to share it because I hope people can use it and like even just like pull it off the shelf, look something up quick and put it back. You could read it straight through too. But
you've sold me on it, and that you kept paper copies. That's much
Yeah.
respect for you for that too. Very smart, very smart.
I have VHS tapes. I have like printed pictures. Yeah, everything. Up to
And it can be found in your books.
Yeah. Well, the VHS tapes, I mean, are on my YouTube channel. But yeah, but everything's in the book. I have like blueprints, maps, all in chronological order. Everything. I have like documents, freedom of information. I have the real estate deed for the whole property because there's some weird stuff in that. I went to the county center and did like a title search and paid for the deed and like printed that, because you can print anything that's a government document. But there were some personal, like some pictures people took over the years, and I may not have permission to print some of them, but for I did a whole history gallery, and to show the true like history, I had to print them. So I did this whole book with a lot of sources. There's like 260 sources in the bibliography in the back, because if you do it under, you know, like what is it for teaching? Basically the Fair Use Act and the Copyright Act. If you do it for like educational purposes, you can cite something and use it to make a point. So as far as like, you know, permission. But when I did bring this to Montauk Library, I called it Hawkins Library before, but I tried to submit this there, and I think they found some problems with some of either the sources that I used. Some of the pictures were theirs. Either they had a problem with that, or I exposed too many things from locals that were, you know, I didn't really call anybody out too hard, but I you know, said it like I saw it, and I'm not sure if that's what made them reject it, but they gave it back.
I think you've left a lot of open-ended questions. We are at the top of the hour, and real quickly, we're just going to take a quick break. But Rodney, we have somebody that the Manchester, England City cap swap. He wants to know if you want to switch caps, and this is like a deal that open-ended. This is the art of the deal. Okay, he wants to know if he can swap you caps from Manchester, England, and that's from Virgil Kane.
What do you mean?
Can you wait till the break?
Hats?
He wants your cap, and he wants to swap you cap.
It's an Outback hat. It came from like a hunting camping store, so you can probably get it online.
I think he wants yours. I don't know.
He wants mine.
We'll negotiate when we come back from break. Maybe he'll write more on there.
Put my John Hancock on there.
I have to. Yeah, see, there you go. Well, we want a picture, Virgil, of what the cap looks like, but I'd take the deal. I would take the deal. But yeah, okay. So we'll be back with Brian just momentarily. And man, I'm just pick up where we left off. This is so fascinating. So fascinating.
Stars and secrets flow. Some Nation X radios glow. In the night, we'll ride the show into the unknown, where mysteries are shown. Dance to the beat we own. Come with us and let it go. Night sky whispers in the dark. Secret trails will leave a mark. Follow close, ignite that spark. We're on a ride, it's just the start. Into the unknown, where mysteries are shown. Dance to the beat we own. Come with us and let it go. Feel the rhythm, feel the night. Every heartbeat, pure delight. So
betrayed. Echoes of voices from ages long past, glimmers of knowledge too rare to last. Chasing the night where the wild things roam. Are we alone or are we headed home? Mysteries, mysteries, dancing through the dark. UFOs shining, igniting the spark. Aliens calling from faraway lands. Cryptids and Sasquatch, just take a chance. Illuminate the skies and break down the walls. Secrets unwrapped, hear the ancient calls. Together we rise, we won't be alone. Exploring the unknown, it's time to be shown. In every heartbeat there's a story untold. In the stillness, the mysteries unfold. Off-world entities drifting through time. Paranormal whispers so hauntingly sublime. In the silence of night, there's magic to find. Embrace the enigma, let go of your mind. Eyes in the woods, they dance in the mist. Cryptids and legends, a chance we can't miss. Conversations with experts unravel the threads, connecting the tales of the living and dead. From the depths of the ocean to the stars on high, the stories we chase will never die. Every encounter creates and relates the fabric of life intertwined with mistakes. Mysteries, mysteries, dances in the dark. UFOs shining, igniting the spark. Aliens calling from faraway lands. Cryptids and Sasquatch, just take a chance. Embrace the unknown, let curiosity. The truth lies within and it sets us free.
In the still of the night when shadows creep, whispers of secrets in silent sleep, Coley's voice cuts through the dark, guiding us where the mystery spark. A journey awaits far from our home, through realms unseen where wild thoughts roam. With experts aligned, their truth to share, unfolding the fabric of cosmic despair. Take the leap, step into the night. With SNX radio we will ignite a symphony of strange where the bass drops low, journeying deep where the unknown flows. UFOs glisten in the starlit sky. ET whispers, look up, don't be shy. Paranormal tales woven into fate, as Coley invites us to concentrate. Heavy bass. Feel that chill when shadows align. Experiences unfold, one of a kind. Off-world encounters, truth they must find. Open your heart, release your mind. Take the leap, step into the light. With SNX radio we will ignite a symphony of strange where the bass drops low, journeying deep where the unknown flows. When life beyond the veil of sight, what secrets kept from our human plight. Coley's conversations stir the thread, an awakening call for the living and the dead. Take the leap, step into the night. With SNX radio we will ignite a SNX Radio. Keep your mind open wide, for in this journey we all confide.
And welcome back to SNX Radio. We are in our second hour with our special guest, Brian Minnick, and he is going into in deep detail Project Montauk and more. I mean, much, much more. So without further ado, let's welcome Brian back on.
Thank you again. I really dig the music. I like the lyrics.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so you definitely is sparking a lot of, conversation and interest here. So keep going. I mean,
Sure.
please.
Yeah, so there's all these aspects, there's the concrete stuff, the history, the blueprints, and the military history, and the native history, and the colonial, everything that's built upon this land over time, the technology. But then there's the strange part of it. I mean, there's the paranormal aspect of this area. It's just like loaded with UFO sightings. It's loaded with paranormal, and even some cryptid, obviously with Junior, but also beyond that, the place is just alive with like extra dimensional crossover, I would say, or like extra dimensional bleed through, or, however you want to look at it. That's my opinion. Things that appear and then disappear, kind of like crossing over into our, but I mean, UFOs have been documented there since, I have one in the book. I just got another one off the CIA website. I got one off the FBI website. But the Montauk Radar actually picked up UFO. They sent it right to Washington, D.C., to the White House, because they thought it was like a Russian bomber of some kind. This was in 1958. There was one in 57 and 58, both heavily documented. And these things were going like thousands of knots, and they passed it off to like the next radar station over, and like maybe it was like Pennsylvania, then Ohio. It went across the whole U.S. in like a matter of minutes. So since then, I have a whole section on paranormal stuff, and one subsection is like UFOs, go in order. In 1960s, it was a huge flap, which 14 or so people saw them in a matter of like a few nights in like the mid 60s. And then like all throughout the 70s, 80s. And then you have some really popular ones, I mean, well-known ones that happened on Long Island, like the South Haven Park crash. That's where John Ford, the president of the Long Island UFO Network, was imprisoned for life because they framed him, said he put radium in the local politician's toothpaste, which is like crazy. But what happened was there was this UFO crash, and they like shut down the highway. And I had friends that lived in the area. It's right next to B&L, which is Brookhaven National Labs. And there's a town there like Mastic Shirley. I had a lot of friends that saw helicopters flying in grid patterns, like lines of helicopters this way, and then adjacent to that, canvassing the area. There was rumors of like a big flatbed truck with a disc covered that went to the Brookhaven Labs. They were called to put out the fire. Brookhaven Labs was called to put out this fire on record. And so they had this video of guys in radiation suits putting out this massive fire right off the side of the highway. And it was that video he was showing to everybody that got him kind of imprisoned. And like since then, nobody's been able to talk to him or interview him or anything. They won't let him talk to anybody. So this was a major crash. Preston wrote about it. He actually kind of inserted himself into the story and said that he shot it down. And he also said this second crash, like a year later, in Moriches Bay, which is like right down the road, like, right in the same line down the island. There was supposed to be a craft there that was shot down in like a year apart. And then supposedly one at Montauk that Linda Moulton Howell talked about, and interviewed an ex-Air Force, somebody that said they worked in a division called JSOP that would identify, track, and shoot these discs down. Makes me think of the story of Preston saying there's one buried there. But also the TW-800 was also downed in that very same exact area. And there was a whole report on that, that people, all the locals, like their names are in this report, their phone numbers and everything. Before it was blacked out, I had the original. And they all saw like two things going up and hitting it. But, some people were saying it was a particle beam weapon from B&L. So we're going into territory that's not only dangerous, but also very speculative. But the facts show that something major did happen. That's like the basics. It was in all the local newspapers. and then it kind of disappeared and went. So, you have these other incidents nearby, but Montauk itself has had glowing green lights in the water that come up out of the ocean and fly around. And the fishermen have been talking about this forever. They don't like to talk about it. They don't want to endanger their, they just want to fish, catch what they can. But these things have been around forever, and people have looked out towards Montauk Point and seen this big green glow out there, like around the area.
I think I'd be tossing those fish back in.
Yeah.
I mean, for real.
Yeah. Like,
Wow. Oh gosh.
It was a long
Yeah. So
history
do
of
they think
UFOs.
there's an underground basin or underwater base, excuse me, that they're
There
coming
is
from? Or
there
they...
are rumors of an underwater base, because there's a submarine base on the other side of town. So people were saying that these submarines can go right through out into the ocean, but also dock, and there's this supposedly this superstructure down there, like a dome, like a deep underground military base.
Sure.
So then, that is part of my, like, to write about it, I would have to actually have, like, in my mind, like, how can they build, the way it's been put in, like, certain TV shows, graphics, and I don't think it would be possible, because if you build like a big wide area under something that's so heavy, it's going to just fall in, right? So I was thinking, though, if you dug like a deep vertical shaft with like an elevator, you could bring equipment down and you can go out to the sides any amount you want. It's not going to affect the structures much.
What about the hole you found?
The hole we found, it was something from World War II, I believe, because but there's something more to that, even older, which is crazy. So on top of this bunker that we went in before World War II, you wouldn't believe what was here. It was this house. It was a windmill house, and this windmill was moved there from like another town. It's like really old, but the person that owned the windmill was called Lathrop Brown. He was FDR's best friend, his college roommate at Harvard. So he built this windmill house. He was the head of the Navy, like the chief of all this like majorly important stuff in Congress. So FDR, when he had polio right before he became president, he spent time at this windmill house right where that bunker is today. So these two like massively powerful people, he became like one of the most powerful people and presidents of the U.S. right after that. Made us kind of like a superpower. He made all these administrations and parts of government that are like he also had the weapons for World War II developed, so the Manhattan Project, and this was all his era. But right before that, he was also at Montauk. And so this windmill house is very weird because these guys are like heads of the Navy, and right across from that property, they had like moved this thing, knocked down the house, and built this bunker. But I'm thinking that like part of that may be something older, because we have speculation that there's something that they built that can enter from the beach and then come out on top of the bluffs. That was our thought. We don't know what else it would be. But so across the street from there is this place called the Wyandanny Inn. Is named after Chief Wyandanch, who was the Montauk chief for a while. But this inn was the biggest bootlegging basement on Long Island, and all of the booze that went there in Prohibition went straight to New York City speakeasies. They didn't like stop in Montauk. They just went straight to the city, and they were the biggest like importer and smuggler of booze. And Carl Fisher, who built like the entire town of Montauk, he had actually died of cirrhosis of the liver, so he was drinking a lot. And in Prohibition, I'm sure he had his own supply. So that was speculation that those tunnels were for him to smuggle booze. The point is, these two powerful guys are sitting at this windmill house, looking across the street at the bootlegging, looking across town at this guy building tunnels and cities and highways across the country. And as soon as Carl Fisher died, the Navy took over his Montauk Tower, the Montauk Manor. They made it into barracks. They built a Navy hospital in the lot, made more steam tunnels. They built the entire town of Montauk into something called the U.S. Military Reservation. It was Navy, Army, Coast Guard, and then later Air Force. But so they swooped in and like took it right away. So I think they were like sitting there plotting, kind of, like these two guys. What were they talking about sitting in this spot, and why, all these things just happen to be there later? I have a feeling they have something to do with it if you go back, into like the 20s and 30s. So I mean, here we are, like going so far back, and just keep finding structures that were built over time. So it's like eras of underground there over time. And I believe that they always repurpose, they don't want to throw anything away that they built. So it's like, it's a standard thing of the government to repurpose something and try to get their money's worth out of it. And it's also a staging area to build deeper. So like if you have, World War II bunkers that they later built Cold War fallout shelters underneath, that would be a great place to go even deeper, or stage the dumb that is said to be there, the deep underground military base.
Well, then they know them inside and out too. They repurpose them. Then they know like what's
yeah,
above
exactly.
knowledge and below. But yeah, there has to be. I mean, and you look at during the Prohibition, I mean, the government was poisoning the alcohol and distributing it. So
That's right.
nothing would surprise me. Nothing would.
Yep.
And it seems like that area, which is really confusing then when you modern day put, you know, the high end elite celebrities like in that
Exactly.
area, that just blows my mind right there.
Yeah, you know who the next door neighbors of Camp Hero are? Directly next door is Peter Beard. He's a famous wildlife photographer, and down the coast there, they call them the Cliff Dwellers. Andy Warhol, his estate was there. He had the Rolling Stones there all the time. The Rolling Stones made the song "Memory Motel." It's about the bar in Montauk where they went all the time. And Keith Haring hung out there with Andy Warhol. There's actually a place right near the point where Andy Warhol and Keith Haring snuck out one night and like did like graffiti inside this little water building. And now that place is like fenced off. It says it's an electrical fence, but my friend touched it and it's not.
That would be me.
I saw a picture in there. Like, that
I'm
stuff's in
that
there.
friend. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
right. I quick just told him if it's stuck, I'll like whack your arm with a stick or something. He's like, oh, thanks. But just to like break the contact. But yeah, so this art in there, of course, would be like worth millions. So that I'm sure they're protecting it. But now the crazy thing about all these people hanging out, they're elites, of course. But the Basquiat, I guess his name is. People have the crown tattoo and like, you know, like Jay-Z wears his hair like Basquiat. I don't know. I'm probably not saying his name.
Okay.
He's a famous artist. Like Ellen collects his stuff. You've seen on many a TikTok videos. Like,
Oh,
so
yes,
his
yes.
documentary came out in 1996, and I have a friend who like channeled something for me and gave me two names. I look them up, and it's actually the guy who financed the Basquiat documentary was one name, and the other one was the guy who made this thing called Montauk Securities Company in 1996, who also helped finance this documentary. And that's also coming from this property. So like you have some really strange ties to the elites there. Preston also wrote about tunnels that went under Mark Hamill's house and Dick Cavett's house there, who he said he used to sneak in and rearrange their furniture, which was like one of those things that you just can't really believe. Like, are you serious? Like, how's that? You know, that's kind of making the story less believable. Like Preston was known to do that sometimes, and some people accuse him of disinfo for that, you know, disinformation agent. But I don't really know exactly. I don't think that's the case. And he's kind of more of like a mad scientist, but also, you know, there's a lot more to his story that I haven't really touched on. Let's just say we kept our distance from them, you know, from day one, just because of
Yeah.
the things that we heard back then. So, and also we
Maybe
wanted
it
to
was
do it on
his
our own.
way, though, of telling you that there is something under there, you know? I don't
Yeah,
know.
definitely. And
Like,
now when I look at the history, there kind of should be something going that direction, which made me think again. I don't know if Preston had all this World War II, you know, blueprints and info that I put together over time, like I put like a huge military timeline, chronological history by era in part of the book. It's just a small section. It's only for reference. I mean, you could pretty much skip over it if you wanted to, but people read it like a book right through. But it's for like looking for these kind of to cross reference some of this stuff if you had to, you know, because you know I thought things might have been in one spot, but if I find out that something else is there, then I can no longer believe that that's my guess was wrong. But eventually we will, you know, if you keep thinking about it, you'll find more answers. That's kind of how I look at it. Find my
yeah.
way to as many answers as I can. At least I'll be happy with any at this point.
Wow, you've been doing this a long time. I mean, you have done your research and you have done it well. I
Like,
mean, yeah, you by far are an expert in this area. I'm just very impressed by. I had no idea all of this was connected into this, so I'm just definitely.
Yeah, he's
What
even
are your
met
thoughts,
Al
Brad?
Bielek.
yeah, I'll be like, when I met him, well, my you know Chris Garitano, who I worked with that did the Montauk Chronicles, he spent time with Al Bielek in Florida for like a year or two. He'd visit him often. He even stayed there, and he had interviewed him extensively in his last days. You know, I didn't really get when we went to those Montauk meetings. Preston and Peter Moon were doing all the talking. Al Bielek would just stand there against the wall, kind of, or stand there and you know kind of look kind of grumpy and Duncan Cameron was there, you know, also like leaning against the wall. So those two didn't say too much, but Al has a lot to say. I guess he just didn't when we saw him. So I never really got to ask him much, which, you know, that part, of course, I regret. But later on, we kept in touch with. I got back in touch with Peter Moon years later, to ask him about the Battery 216 tunnels, because he mentioned this mine and some other things I wanted to ask him about. And he ended up coming to Montauk with us to Camp Hero. We had it on our channel. It was like the first few videos we made, and there we are with like Peter Moon. So we climbed up the bluffs with him. We went all over the base and spent the whole day with him. And at the end of the day, he took us to like a birthday party in Montauk. It was the strangest thing. We bought like, he took us shopping for like, things for the party. And then we sat there at this birthday party. It was really strange. And one of the people there said they remembered me from a dream. And they told me I was like, taking technology out of a radar, which kind of reminded me of my own dreams, but I didn't say anything. And he said I was like cursing and mad. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like what I do when I'm like the computer pisses me off. So I'm like, it does sound like me, but it's so weird. I've heard other people say that. So that's like that Montauk thing, and the whole thing with Montauk Boys, I've known a lot. I've talked to so many. There's, the people that like one summer. So each summer we'd go there, me and two other channels, Dark Hour Paranormal, Michael Roser and Michael Colantonio, Long Island Bigfoot. We started like going there each August 12th because that's like the day of the Montauk Project ending and when Junior wrecked the base. So we thought it'd be a good day in the summer. The third year we like merged with Brian Sang and Arkim Ra and James Rink and Alondra Markman and everybody. It was like 40 people. They had like 2 like Airbnb mansions. So it was just, I met a lot of people. And over the years, I've met several people that said they were involved. There's a bunch of locals that nobody knows from the internet that don't talk. And I know of them. And I'm trying to get them, hear about what they have to say a little. But the main thing is that I don't usually cover people's personal stories because I don't even cover any of my own experiences. But I mean, each one is like its own book. So I just encourage people to write their own story. And because if I tried to jam that into mine, it would be like, like this big. And I feel like they should tell
all the information
stories.
you have.
Yeah, and
well, I'm sure it's not everybody has that platform. I remember Jessica Jones and Bigfoot Mike were out. Is that one of the? Okay, yeah.
I was there with them. So cool. My car broke down in Camp Hero that time, and I had to
I remember
bring it
that
home.
Story.
I took the train back the next day and stayed over.
Yeah. Oh wow.
But otherwise, I would have been there longer. But so we've gone 4 years in a row now, like on that day, and. I don't know what we're trying to find anymore. We're trying to figure out like where we're going to go because we've looked at everything. So one of the last times I did go with Mike, being that he's a woodsman, there's half of Camp Hero is 400 acres. That's where the military bases all are. It was like half Army and Air Force. And then the other side is this huge like nature preserve. There's no trails. It's just like thick, unpassable woods, 200, almost 300 acres worth. So we decided to walk all the way over there last time. We got stuck, lost. We were out there for hours. We had like missing time. It was like I had like an hour of footage and it was like 5 hours we were walking. Didn't bring any water. It's like what was wrong with us? We know better. And the funny thing is it's not funny, but we came across this huge like square of 4 poaching stands, really nice deer stands and a huge steel ladder. And it was like, like a zone to take things out. So we put some marbles there, let them know we were there. But we were thinking about it. Mike always sees him because he's out in the woods. He's telling me ahead of time there's poachers nearby because he saw like a glowing tack on a tree and other signs of like a branch broken. He said that's from poachers. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I didn't know, but then we came right on these stands after. And he says they don't go far, so these are probably the same elites that live on that road because it's all like multi-million-dollar mansions. So maybe some of them are in there poaching, who knows.
Yeah.
But Peter Beard was actually, he went missing for 20 days and they found him passed away inside Camp Hero. But when I read the Wikipedia, it says hunters found him in Camp Hero State Park. So there's not supposed to be any hunters in this park where like now you see a lot of families because of Stranger Things. It's becoming like a tourist place in that sense, the park itself, not the town of Montauk. But, it's very strange to see that right on the wiki. I don't think they realized. So there's a lot more to it, and maybe these are the same guys that found him. I don't know, and maybe we're not going to really look into it too much more. It's it's only a side thing, and maybe we're stepping on the wrong toes or accidentally.
Maybe if you talk about it too much, it will disappear. So I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Rodney, you're right in the neighborhood, aren't you? Like, can we add Rodney here?
Oh, geez, I did kind of want to ask him more if there's anything you can say about a connection to Rome, New York. I mean, it's really, you got me when you mentioned that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can definitely pull now. Like I could go look for. I think there was mentions in the one of the first book series, so I could like find them and get that to you. But also, I think there was a newsletter Peter Moon would put out called the Montauk Pulse. I have some of those old issues, and there was a lot of writing about Rome, New York, after the project ended. That there was an underground base there. It was similar to the Montauk base in the sense that they had some of the similar radar sites. I don't think they had a Sage Tower there, but there were some sub Sage sites that had a different tower, a different radar on top of the same tower building. So like there were 12 of this one built with the ANS, ANF FP35, and then there was the ANS FP26 on top of this building. So there's 12 of those. I think Rome might have had one of those because there was one of those in Pennsylvania. So I have the map of all these towers. Besides them having that kind of radar, I heard they also had an underground base and they continued the programming there that they were doing in Montauk. So like essentially like the Montauk Boys program, like the sleeper.
I would believe it. In New York State, this is by area, it's the largest city, but by population, New York City beats it.
Wow.
And there's still a lot of radar stuff going on there. And
wow. I'll get the exact words and mentions that I can find. I'll gather them.
If it's in your books, I'll get your books. I'll definitely look in there. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I covered the Rome part yet just because there's so many, but I will put that in the second. I'm going to have to do the second part to complete all this. I kind of left it off halfway all throughout anyway, knowing that I couldn't fit it. So I will touch on that because you reminded me by saying it.
There's no homeless people in Rome.
Wow.
It's a big city. It's a big city.
Yeah. Maybe they are, but they're not on the surface.
They're down in the tunnels. I don't know.
I think I just mentioned it once in my book as a place that it continued, but I will dive deeper in and pull out. A lot of the times in here, when I'm talking about these old stories, I paraphrase the exact quote from the original book, and then I'll comment on it. So I did a lot of that, just stitching together everybody who's ever mentioned a certain kind of topic. So like when those guys used to chase us around the base, because they only caught us once, but they chased us about 6 or 7 times, and we always got away. But it was always the same 2 guys. So when I started looking, those 2 guys arrested Preston Nichols and Peter Moon, ticketed them. They arrested K.B. Wells. He wrote a very early Montauk book that was separate from the original authors. It's a good one called The Montauk Files by K.B. Wells. He arrested the Stealth Skater or Valentine Designs. He was an early blogger that kind of had similar explorations as us. John Quinn Newshawk was also my friend Amy, who was a Montauk summer resident, also same guy. There was a mustache guy and then an African-American state trooper. And the state trooper was under the command of the civilian. That's what everybody noticed. This civilian was irate and he was so over the top for busting and catching people. I have him on video. He's the guy who says, when we come out of the tunnels, he radios for help. He's probably the state trooper. And he says, that's the guy that I met that I became friends with. I think his last name was Parker. I'm not sure, Officer Parker. But this guy was unknown. Nobody knows who this civilian was. And he gets on the radio and says, meet us at the access bunker. So this is the bunker where you're supposed to be able to go underground. And he calls it the access bunker on the footage, which is like, access to what, But so these people have been, nobody knows who employed them. And when they were questioned, they said they were employed by the Montauk Air Force Station. I even have the book when Preston and Peter Moon got arrested. They had a trial. They fought it. And the judge that presided over the trial, he said, can you sign me a book? So they signed it to the judge, Preston, Peter Moon. And then that judge's grandson is the first person who loaned me the book. And he never took it back. So I have the book that they signed to the judge. And it's, it's crazy synchronicities all the time.
Yeah. So your friend never told you, the officer that's your friend now that arrested you, he never told you who was the man behind the mic?
I mean, I'm not like friends with him. I just made friends with him because they were trying to add him into the show. They didn't use his clips, but I talked to him for a long time. I told him, you arrested me once, and he's like, oh, okay. He's like, sorry, I was just doing my job. I'm like, yeah, I know. We were just exploring. He's like, yeah. And then we started, BSing, but I didn't ask him about the guy. And I think it's because somebody was like, all right, come over here. We have to do this and film something. And, they kind of pulled me away from him. I would have talked to him. Yeah. But the guy, the other guy has been investigated by certain people like John Quinn Newshawk, who was the guy who used to write blogs. And he actually was like pushing really hard, trying to find out who this guy was. He was calling the state parks and going places and asking. And this guy had like different names. And so there was a part on the Dark Files where I found all these food records on the base for 1987, like in the tens of thousands of dollars each month. and where's this food going? So everybody, first thing you think is underground. And they were billed to Montauk Air Force Station, which was closed like 6 years earlier. So either somebody's running a huge scam or they're putting this food under there. So I told them about that on the dark files. And what happened was,
Oh, I didn't even think about it like that. So in the bunker, storing the food then.
yeah, like they
what
were
you
like
think?
food service. And so we found these papers in this little PX or like commissary that had all these like aluminum food, like catering trays and like sterno burners and stuff to like feed a lot of people. And these records were like buried, and we were going through them. We took them, we hid them, we came back for them. We forgot one time that we hid them, then we came back another time. Anyway, we finally took them, and then we were near the computer building, and this truck came flying down the road, like you hear the gravel, and they were speeding towards us, and they were beeping this horn, which is actually not their horn. It's this sound that comes out of this building, like an old alarm, like a Cold War alarm. Because later on, I found out is on other videos, and once in a while, this building will just let out this old like, like that kind of sound. But I thought it was their horn, so they were like coming after us. I thought they knew we took the papers, so I threw them up in the air like as a distraction, like, oh, they're gonna not chase us because they just want the papers. They probably had no clue what we threw, and we were running around the building like, and we kept running around. That we
Yeah.
Later on, I didn't. On the show, there was one guy, an investigative journalist, Steve Volk, who was very critical, and I could tell on his face he was like, oh yeah, you don't have him, sure. But later, I was able to prove time and time again. This guy that wrote another book, a surfer, there was a major blog. It was on like a UK blog. And now just recently, I met somebody contact me on Instagram, and they also found these papers. So all these people found these papers and checks that I talked about. And some were like checks for 0 cents from like Boeing and like aircraft food services and like all this crazy stuff. What is it doing here? Like has nothing to do with Montauk. So I was just happy to find those to kind of back up what I said at least. And I mean, all of this stuff points to, like really, it points to a lot, and it's just to stitch it together.
Yeah.
It's hard to get anything solid though, like an actual 100% proof, of course. So it's like a circumstantial case. You kind of build around.
So what do you think it is? It is now. I mean, let's face it, our government just rolls it from one project to the next project to the black budget project. What do you think it is today?
I think it's what was learned at Montauk is spread across the planet already. So like on top of the radar, you see this dipole omnidirectional radar antenna. Like I think I held it up before, but this is right there. It's on top of the radar dish. It's like a huge pole, and that's essentially the first cell phone tower. It's an omnidirectional microwave. So they found out that it didn't have to rotate and cast a beam around. It could just radiate out in every direction at once. And that is the model for the modern tower, which is in every neighborhood in the US, maybe in the world, the 5G cell towers now. But they cranked it up from 4G to 5G, and it'll be 6G soon enough. And that just means 6 gigabytes. But I'm thinking this thing on the Montauk radar was probably like megabytes. It was low power, but the model has spread across the planet, just like the internet that started at Montauk has spread across the planet, and so many other things. So I think it's kind of like affected us all. It's kind of part of all of our lives now. And what's down there below, maybe it looks so destroyed on the surface, and the subtunnels that are like World War II and fallout shelters are probably really bad and abandoned and flooded. But if they did build a deep shaft and a dome, I can't see them just abandoning it. And I think they would repurpose it, like you said, and keep it running. So it's very possible something's down there still. And you wouldn't.
I remember reading.
You would access it far off, I guess.
What was their public reason for closing Camp Hero? And
well, that's the interesting thing. In 1969, there was a general drawdown in all of the U.S. on air bases, so they mothballed it in 1969. And that's when the black budget stuff started. Because actually in 1973, when MK Ultra was brought into Congress through the what is it called? It's slipping my mind. They had the trials and they exposed it, and that's pretty much when black budget stuff started, because they could no longer have anything on record because people could dig it up through. What happened was Ewan Cameron in Canada, the sleep center, who the LSD rooms were actually based off of his rooms. He had a box of papers that came out, and they totally like blew the whole top off with that. So I guess going completely off record and dark is what would happen. They're like, we're going to keep doing it, but we're not going to ever have a way that you could find it again. But so
I heard they were going and burning those pages, like at the back.
They were trying to.
They're just trying to get rid of them. Anything
That's
they
right.
could.
So like
Wow.
69 to 80, they had no mission there. They were there for 13 years from 1969 to like 1982. Some of the last people left, and they were supposed to be closed, but they were just open, and they didn't really have a main mission for the radar, but it was still turning. So really, what were they doing there
Mm,
all those years? And if there were lights,
yeah.
what were they still operating? And I knew some people that worked there in the last few years, family friends and stuff when I was little, um, and I was able to find them later. And I'm in touch with a lot of the guys that work there, and they have some crazy stories too. One of the veterans is always saying on their Facebook page that he was in the Montauk dentist chair and he had a terrible experience. He has nightmares every
Mm,
night, and he never wants to talk about it. And he said it changed him. And I'm like, this is one of the guys that is a vet, and you have this whole thing in the book about the Montauk chair, but
chair,
he's
yeah.
talking about a dentist chair. But it was just an odd story, and they even had
That's
some.
kind of what it looks like, though, isn't it? Is the chair still there?
Well, that's the thing. I was never able to find out much information on where exactly it was located on the base.
Hmm.
But recently, we were walking there one summer. We met this guy. I started talking to him. He told me his granddaughter. They're from Montauk. His family's been there since like the 1600s. They actually came off the Mayflower and came down to Montauk, but they were like some of the original Montauk names and families. And
Hmm.
so his granddaughter supposedly found the Montauk chair somewhere deep underground under the base. And
Wow.
I said, I have to go talk. So he invited me over to his house to talk and stuff. He wanted to buy a book. I went there recently, like 2 weeks ago, sat with him for like an hour. And his granddaughter is very, very scared. She doesn't want to talk. She had pictures of this and showed it to him. So I asked him, what does it look like? And he said it looked like a regular, recliner type chair, but it had a lot of tech on it, like wires and gadgets
Mm,
and stuff. So it is. I don't know what to get out of it, but I trust this guy, and he didn't really have
yeah.
many crazy stories. But apparently, this photo is gone. I'm sure it was deleted. She
Oh,
said,
yeah.
I think she's really scared, and I guess leave it at that. But some locals claim to have found things there. I also interviewed a guy who lived on the base. There's a base housing, and I was doing a solar estimate on his roof. So I took the time to ask him, have you ever been in anything underground here? And he said, yeah, when I was kids, a little younger, me and my friends would go into the base and with a box of strikeable matches, and they would go down and down until they got halfway through the box of matches. They were like, all right, we got to go back because we're going to run out of light. I was like, what is a flashlight? But he told me, I said, what was down there? He said, just a bunch of generators and like, air HVAC stuff. And sounds about right for how like those things are kind of built. But I don't
Yeah,
really
I
know
just
what he's talking about.
right. I just remember reading one time, like the CIA, they were having a big meeting and they had it where in a circus tent, right out in the middle of the open. It's kind of like those types of things. Like, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, did
hidden
you
in plain
open
sight.
it? Did you see? Yes, hidden in plain sight. I,
Yep.
I have to thank you. We're on our second hour, and I'd
Oh wow.
love to
Okay.
invite you back because
Sure.
there is so much more
Love
here,
to.
and you are absolutely phenomenal. The
Thank you guys.
knowledge and the research that you have done is phenomenal, absolutely
All right.
phenomenal. So I would love to extend an offer to bring you back on, and we'll get in touch with you with the next opening. But yeah, is
Thank you
there
so
any
much.
last questions that you have, Rodney?
Nope,
That
nope, I
you
don't have any more. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
You too. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We're gonna
And
get Rodney out there in his car,
yeah, let me know.
the cell phone.
I'll go live from
I
Rome, New
would get
York.
myself in trouble there. Yes, I would love to come and see it. So yeah, expect me one of these times. But definitely, thank you so much, Brian. We really
Thank you.
appreciate you
Likewise.
coming
I
on.
appreciate it
Yes,
just as much.
yes, and we will have you back on very
Sure
soon for
thing. If
part
you
two.
want, I appreciate it.
Yes, great.
Awesome.
Wow, wow, Rodney. What do you think? I mean, that
Uh,
was just mind blowing. That was so cool.
yeah, I had no idea there was a connection to so close to home again. This isn't the first time a guest on your show has hit close to home. I think it's the third person.
I think it's our show, Rodney.
Yeah,
It's
that's
called
all
my
right.
show.
It's just part of my life. It's not paranormal. This is normal. It's not paranormal at all.
No, you said on my show. I said on our show. It's not my
Yes,
show.
on our show. Yes, I'm still getting used to saying that. I'm sorry, guys. I appreciate you doing this as a joint thing.
No.
Our show, SNX Radio, Sub Nation. We're gonna be legendary, right?
We're going down in history one way or the
Yeah.
other. But yeah, no, that's great. So we're definitely going to be in touch with Brian and get him back on. And how the synchronicity works out is I was going to get him on a lot earlier, and it just worked out. This is like the perfect time. So we'll put 2 if anybody is interested in his book. I'm going to order this book. Oh, I've got so many questions by the next time he comes on. So this will be great. Yeah. Great.
I'm going to hold him to it, putting Rome, New York in his new book.
Yeah. You get your shovel and you get your, listening device out.
Preston
Maybe
Dennett
a
told me
metal detector. Yeah.
Preston Dennett helped me figure out the UFO crash that happened in Rome and a retrieval, and there might be one buried there, is what I drew that conclusion.
Yes. Maybe this all ties into play, but hey,
Dee
we'll have to find
Moonfly,
out.
she's the other one that had ties to New York, right here, right
Oh,
where I
yes.
live.
I just talked to her, and I was I said we had an early show today, but I'm going to call her on Monday. But
Yeah.
I love her too. Yeah, she's excellent. But yeah, so everybody have a safe Easter weekend, and SNX Radio, our show. I'm Coley, of course, Rodney here. They're trying to barter for your hats. So if I kind of was trying to make a deal for you, but I don't know how it worked out
we
so well.
might be able to work something out, but we'll have to get in touch with me again.
Yes.
All right,
And on
thank you, Coley.
behalf of SNX Radio, thank you for taking the journey into the unknown with Coley and Rodney. And we will be back to you tomorrow night. And we have another very special agnost will be with us tomorrow night. So we'll see you at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, take us out, Rodney. Final
Keep
word.
journeying into the unknown, and remember you're not alone, and just got each other's back, and we're just going to keep on thriving for disclosure, because it's going to happen now. It's going to happen. We're part of it. You're part of it. They're part of it. Yeah.
We all are.
I got
Yeah.
goosebumps.
Pushing forward.
Just blisters coming out.
Be kind to one another. And
yes.
We'll see you tomorrow night. I almost said next week, but tomorrow night. So
Unraveling the mystery, secrets in the night. We travel through the cosmos, ready for the flight. Together we shine, casting shadows aside. In the heart of the rhythm where our dreams collide.
Join the Subnation X quest, the truth is our guide. In the vast expanse, it's where we reside. Hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright.
From the Subnation X quest, the truth is our guide. In the vast expanse, it's where we reside. Hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves surround us, everything's alright. SNX Radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spots. Heavy bass drops with tight beats.
Illuminate the shadows, the echo of our call.
On this roller we will never fall.
Feel the energy rising, can you sense the spark? As we dive deeper into the cosmic arc.
Stories of the universe, mysteries unfold. In the heart of SNX, where the truth is gold. Every note we play, every line we write, crafting our legacy, shining ever bright.
SNX Radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spot. Here in the spotlight, we're taking our turn. With the fire in our hearts, let the passion burn. SNX Radio's call, ringing through the air. Together we rise, together we dare.
So join us now, let the rhythm flow. With SNX Radio, we're ready to go. Unraveling the mystery. mystery side by side. We stand hand in hand in this dance of truth. Let the story expand. Unraveling the mystery, secrets in the night. We travel through the cosmos, ready for the flight. Together we'll shine, casting shadows aside. In the heart of the rhythm where our dreams collide.
Join the subnation, next quest, the truth is our guide. In the vast expanse, it's where we reside. Hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright.
From the combination heights, quest, the truth is our guide. In the vast expanse, it's where we reside. Hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves surround us, everything's alright. SNX radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spots. Heavy bass drops with tight beats.
Illuminate the shadows, the echo of our call.
On this road we can never fall.
Feel the energy rising, can you sense the spark? As we dive deeper into the cosmic arc.
Stories of the universe, mysteries unfold. In the heart of SNX, where the truth is gold. Every note we play, every line we write, crafting our legacy, shining ever bright.
SNX radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spot. Here in the spotlight, we're taking our turn. With the fire in our hearts, let the passion burn. As the next radio's call, ringing through the air. Together we rise, together we dare.
So join us now, let the rhythm flow. With SNX radio, we're ready to go. Unraveling the mystery side by side, we stand hand in hand. In this dance